Hey everyone, I'm Leela. I need to tell you about the summer that cracked my entire life open like an egg and let something raw and real spill out. This isn't a cute I met my soulmate story. It's definitely not the standard coming out arc you've heard 1,000 times. This is about blood, recognizing blood, about seeing yourself in someone else's eyes so completely that every lie you ever told yourself collapses in a single breath. It's about family that isn't supposed to feel like this, desire that isn't supposed to exist, and the terrifying freedom that comes when you finally stop pretending. Last June, I was 24, freshly single and hiding out in my childhood bedroom in Asheville, North Carolina, like a wounded animal. My ex, Noah, and I had been together for years. We had the Pinterest boards, the 5-year plan, the joint Spotify playlists. Everyone said we were perfect. When he left, said I was half here, like I was waiting for permission to live. I cried for exactly 2 days, then felt lighter. That should have been the first alarm bell. Mom's house sits up on a ridge, surrounded by mountain laurel and the constant hush of cicadas. I'd taken a contract doing album cover design for indie musicians, which meant I could work in pajama shorts on the screened porch with sweet tea sweating beside my tablet. 2 months of that quiet limbo, and then one night at dinner, Mom set her glass down with the careful precision that always meant incoming earthquake, Lila.
Abuela.
You know, I've never kept your father a secret exactly, just distant. I did know. Biological dad, had vanished when Mom was 5 months pregnant with me. She met my stepdad, Paul, when I was 4. And Paul's the one who taught me to ride a bike, who cried at my high school graduation. The sperm donor was a footnote. Well, Mom continued, folding and unfolding her napkin, found me on Instagram a few months ago. We've been messaging. And, baby, you have a half-sister. Her name is Rowan. She's 26. Her mom died last fall, cancer on. She's struggling. I invited her to come stay with us for a few weeks. I thought you should know each other, a sister. I had a sister I'd never met, never even known to grieve the absence of. Part of me wanted to be angry at the intrusion, but mostly I felt this strange, hollow curiosity, like a room in my house I'd never noticed was locked. The week before she arrived was torture. I stalked her sparse Instagram black and white film photos. Thrift store aesthetic, a lot of collarbones and cigarette smoke. She was beautiful in a way that felt dangerous. Sharp cheekbones, storm cloud eyes, dark auburn hair shaved on one side and long on the other, always falling across her face like she was hiding in plain sight. She played bass in a shoegaze band called Marrow. Her bio just said, "Grief is a second skeleton." Friday came. Paul grilled steaks. Mom made her rosemary potatoes and that peach cobbler she only breaks out for funerals and homecomings. I changed outfits for time sundress. Too eager. Ripped jeans and a band tee. Trying too hard to look like I didn't care. I settled on high-waisted linen pants and a cropped tank that showed the constellation tattoo under my ribs. Doorbell rang at 6:07. I stayed in the kitchen doorway, like a coward while Mom pulled her into a hug that looked like it might never end. Then they turned the corner into the living room and the floor tilted under me. Rowan was taller than I. Expected maybe 5'10", with the kind of wiry strength that comes from hauling. Amps and heartbreak in equal measure. She wore a faded black tank top, leather cuffs on both wrists, and army surplus pants tucked into scuffed Doc Martens. A thin silver ring glinted in her septum. Her hair was longer than in the photos, the shaved side growing out into soft copper fuzz. And her eyes, Jeezy gray-green like riverstones after rain, ringed with yesterday's eyeliner. When she smiled at something Paul said, it was crooked and real and completely devastating. Then those eyes found me. The air left my lungs in one silent whoosh. It wasn't just that she was beautiful. It was that she looked like someone had taken every secret part of me and given them bones and skin and breath. Same slightly upturned nose. Same mouth that looked like it was always holding back a joke or a sob. Same restless energy coiled under the surface. Mom said, "Rowan, this is Lila." She crossed the room in 3 slow steps and stopped just inside my personal space. Up close, I could smell Herclove cigarettes and cedar, and something electric. "Hey, little sister," she said, voice low and a little raspy, like she'd been singing in smoky bars all her life. She held out her hand, palm up, and offering more than a handshake. I slid my hand into hers, and the second our skin touched, the world narrowed to a single point of contact. Heat rushed up my arm and detonated behind my ribs. Her fingers curled around mine, thumb brushing the inside of my wrists like she was reading my pulse. I swear time stuttered. "You feel it too," she said. Not a question. Her pupils were huge. I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. All I could do was nod, the tiniest movement. She smiled again, softer this time, and it felt like forgiveness and reckoning all at once. The first night was polite chaos. We sat on opposite ends of the couch while Mom and Paul asked 1,000 gentle questions about her mom's illness. The band's Seattle Rain. Rowan answered everything with patience. But every time our eyes met across the room, it was like someone turned the volume down on the rest of the world. Later, when the house was quiet, I found her on the back porch steps, smoking a clove. "The cherry glowing red in the dark? Mind company?" I asked. She scooted over without a word, making space. I sat close enough that our knees touched. The cicadas screamed around us. For a long time, we just breathed the same air. Finally, she said, "I used to imagine you, you know? When I was a kid and my mom would get quiet on your birthday, I made up this whole person. Turns out the real you is better and worse, because now I can't pretend I don't know what this feels like." What feels like? My voice came out a whisper. She turned her head, moonlight cutting silver across her cheekbone. "Like I've been missing a limb my whole life and someone just handed it back to me. Like I want things I'm not allowed to want." My heart was a hummingbird against my ribs. "Rowan." "I know," she said quickly. "I know it's fucked up. I know we're whatever we are. Half-sisters. Strangers. But I've never felt anything this loud. Lila, tell me I'm not crazy. Tell me you feel it too." I reached out without thinking and tucked that stubborn strand of hair behind her ear. My fingers lingered against the shaved side of her head, the velvet bristle of new growth. "You're not crazy," I said. She closed her eyes like my touch was both pain and relief. That night, I lay in bed staring at the glow and thought stars. I'd stuck to my ceiling at 12 and listened to her moving around in the guest room across the hall. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a question. The weeks that followed were a slow, exquisite torture. We fell into a rhythm that felt ancient and brand new at the same time. Coffee on the porch at dawn, teaching me the bass line to a Joy Division song while our bare feet tangled under the kitchen table. Late night drives up the Blue Ridge Parkway with the windows down and her hand resting on my thigh like it belonged there. Swimming in the cold creek behind the house, coming up gasping and laughing and unable to look away from the water beating on her collarbones. We never crossed the bright line, not really, but we danced right up to it every goddamn day. A thumb brushing across a lower lip. Her tracing the freckles on my shoulder like she was reading Braille, falling asleep on the couch during movie marathons with her head in my lap, my fingers carting through her hair for hours. Mom and Paul saw something. Of course they did. But they're Southern and polite and heartbroken for both of us in their own ways. So they pretended everything was normal. One night in late July, there was a thunderstorm that knocked the power out. We lit candles everywhere and opened all the windows so the rain smell could come in. Rowan found Paul's old record player and put on Nick Drake. We slow danced in the living room with lightning flashing through the windows, her hands on my waist, my cheek against her shoulder. "I'm leaving in 3 days," she said into my hair. "I know. I don't know how to do this." "Me neither." She pulled back just enough to look at me. "Whatever this is, it's real, and it's ours. Even if the world says it's wrong." I kissed her then. Not soft, not careful. I kissed her like I was drowning, and she was air. She kissed me back like she'd been waiting her whole life to do exactly that. We tasted like rain and grief and every forbidden thing. When we finally broke apart, foreheads still touching, she whispered, "I see you, Lila, all of you. And you're the most beautiful thing I've ever been terrified to love." she cried. The storm raged on outside like it was cheering us on or warning us, maybe both. She left on a Tuesday morning in August. We didn't make promises we couldn't keep. We just held on too long in the driveway while Mom pretended not to watch from the kitchen window. She's back in Seattle now. I'm still here, trying to figure out what comes next. We text every day. Sometimes we fall asleep on FaceTime with the screens propped on pillows. It's like we're still sharing the same room. I don't have answers. I don't know what we are, sisters, lovers, twin souls wearing different bodies. All of the above, none. I just know that for the first time in my life, I'm not acting. I'm not waiting for permission. I woke up, and whatever happens, I will never unsee myself in her eyes. So yeah, that's the story of how I met my sister, and lost the last excuse I had for not living completely, terrifyingly, incandescently alive. Thanks for listening. The drive from Vancouver to Calgary had been a blur of nervous energy and half-remembered playlists. I'd rehearsed 100 different ways to say hello, to bridge 24 years of absence. But the moment I stepped out of my beat-up Subaru and saw her standing on the porch, every word evaporated. Lila, my half-sister. The one I hadn't known existed until 3 weeks ago. When a letter from our father dying in a hospice bed in Edmonton arrived at my apartment like a bomb wrapped in ordinary paper. Leela opened the door before I could knock, and we just stared at each other for a long, awkward second. She was shorter than I expected, with dark curls pulled into a messy bun and hazel eyes that looked exactly like mine when I caught them in certain light. "You must be Noah," she said, smiling like she was trying not to cry. "Yeah, hi. You're Leela." She laughed, a bright, startled sound, and pulled me into a hug that smelled like vanilla and cedar. "This is so weird," she whispered into my shoulder. "You have no idea." Our mom, her mom? Technically, the one who'd raised her appeared behind her. Wiping her hands on a dish towel, Sarah? She looked older than I'd imagined, tired around the eyes. But there was a softness to her that made something in my chest unclenched. Come in," she said, ushering me inside like I was any other guest, and not the living proof of a 24-year-old secret. I made lasagna, and garlic bread, and there's wine. A lot of wine. The house smelled like childhood I'd never had. Photos on the walls of Leela, at dance recitals, graduation, braces, and all. None of me. Of course there wouldn't be. I'd grown up 3 provinces away with a mother who'd died of ovarian cancer when I was 19. Who'd waited until her last coherent week to tell me I had a sister. A family that she'd left when she found out she was pregnant with me because Sarah's husband, our father, hadn't wanted another child. That she'd never stopped loving him anyway. Dinner was surprisingly easy. Leela had this way of filling silence with stories about her job at a small indie bookstore. About the terrible blind date she'd been on last month. About how she'd once tried to dye her hair blue and ended up with swamp green roots for 6 weeks. I told them about Vancouver, about freelancing as an illustrator, about the tiny studio apartment with the leaky skylight that somehow still felt like home. We talked about everything except the obvious. After dessert, Sarah and her husband Mark retreated to the living room with the pretense of watching some British baking show, leaving Lila and me on the back deck with a bottle of red wine and a sky full of stars. "So," she said, swirling her glass, "how are you actually doing with all this?" I laughed, but it came out shaky. "I have no idea. You. Same. I keep waiting to feel angry. Like, congrats, you had a secret brother this whole time. But mostly I just feel curious about you." I looked at her then, really looked. The way the porch light caught the curve of her cheek. The way she tucked one foot under her like she'd done it 1,000,000 times on this exact chair. She was beautiful in a way that made my chest hurt, not because I wanted her, but because she was real, tangible mine. In the strangest possible way. "I brought something," I said, digging into my backpack. I pulled out the small leather-bound sketchbook I'd carried across 3 provinces. My mom, our mom's mom, I guess she kept these. Drawings I did when I was little. She said to give them to you if I ever... I trailed off. Lila took the book carefully, like it might disintegrate. She flipped through pages of crayon dinosaurs and lopsided houses, pausing at one near the Baka stick figure family holding hands under a rainbow sun. 2 adults, 2 kids. I drew this when I was 6, I said quietly. I didn't know why I gave them 4 people. I just... Did she trace the waxy lines with one finger? When she looked up, her eyes were wet. I used to draw pictures like this too. Always for people. I thought I was imagining a brother because I was lonely. We sat with that for a long time. The next few weeks settled into something that felt dangerously like belonging. Lila gave me the spare room, her old bedroom, actually. Faded constellation stickers still glowing faintly on the ceiling. We fell into a rhythm. Mornings with coffee and her terrible playlists, she had a disturbing love for early 2000s pop-punk. Afternoons exploring Calgary, her favorite hidden bookshops, the river pathways where we'd walk for hours talking about everything and nothing. She was funny in this dry, self-deprecating way that made me laugh when I hadn't in months. Not since Mom died. Not since I'd ended things with Claire. Who'd wanted marriage and babies and a life I couldn't picture for myself no matter how hard I tried? One night, maybe 2 weeks in, we ended up at a dive bar downtown with sticky floors and a jukebox that only played songs from 2009. We were 3 beers deep when she leaned across the table and said, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Shoot, why did you and Claire really break up? You keep saying we wanted different things, but that feels like the short version." I stared into my beer. The truth had been sitting in my throat for years, heavy and impossible. But Lila was looking at me with those eyes that saw too much. And I was so tired of carrying it alone. I said slowly, I think I've been lying to myself about what I want. About who I am. She waited. No judgment, just that steady patience she'd had since the moment we met. "I think I might be gay," I said. The words felt like glass coming out sharp, dangerous, but also a relief so profound it made me dizzy. Or bi. Or something. I don't know. I just know that being with Claire felt like performing. Like I was reading from a script someone else wrote. Lila reached across the table and took my hand. "Noah, I've known since I was 14, I continued, the words tumbling out now that the dam had broken. "There's this guy on my hockey team, Mateo. He had this laugh that made my whole body feel like it was on fire. I used to invent reasons to sit next to him on the bus. And then I spent the next 10 years pretending it was nothing. That it was a phase. That if I just tried hard enough with girls, it would go away." "It doesn't work that way," she said softly. "No, it really doesn't." She squeezed my fingers. "I'm proud of you. For saying it out loud, that's huge." "I'm terrified," I admitted. "What if everyone hates me? What if Dad's dying," she said bluntly, "and he spent 24 years not being part of your life? His opinion doesn't get to matter anymore. And Mom Sirashi, love you no matter what? You're her kid too, even if she didn't get to raise you." I laughed wetly. "You're annoyingly wise for someone who still owns a Fall Out Boy hoodie from high school." "It's vintage," she protested, grinning. Then, more seriously, "I have my own thing I've been carrying around. Want to hear it?" "Always." She took a deep breath. "I'm asexual. I've been trying to figure out how to tell people for years. Thought maybe if I just dated enough, I'd magically develop sexual attraction like everyone else seems to have. Spoiler, didn't work." The world tilted a little. "Wait, really?" "Yeah, I like romance. Kissing, cuddling, all that stuff. Just not the rest. Never have. Thought I was broken for the longest time." "You're not broken," I said fiercely. "You're just you. Right back at you." We sat there in the bar's dim light. 2 half-siblings who'd spent our whole lives feeling like puzzles with missing pieces. Suddenly finding that maybe we'd been each other's pieces all along. Later, walking home through quiet streets, she bumped her shoulder against mine. "So, gay crisis buddies?" "Gay crisis and ace crisis buddies," I corrected. "Best secret siblings ever." When we got back to the house, Sarah was asleep on the couch with the TV still on. Leela draped a blanket over her, and I stood there watching this small act of care, feeling something settle in my chest that had been restless my entire life. That night, lying in the spare room under glow-in-the-dark stars that had watched Lila grow up, I let myself imagine a future where I wasn't hiding, where I could want things people without shame, where I could be Noah, fully and unapologetically. And for the first time in years, I fell asleep without dreaming of running. The summer stretched on, golden and impossible. Leela and I became a unit texting memes at 2 a.m., making pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, leaving post-it notes with terrible puns on each other's doors. She came with me when I finally worked up the courage to visit our father in hospice, holding my hand while he cried and apologized in the fractured way of a man who knows he's running out of time. "I wish I'd been braver," he whispered, his hand frail in mine. "Both your mothers deserved better." Leela didn't cry until we were back in the car. Then she let me hold her while she shook with the weight of 24 years of Alamos. In August, I entered some of my illustrations in a local queer art show. Lila helped me pick the pieces-inest ones. It's about identity and longing and the particular ache of loving someone you're not supposed to want. One of them won an award. She screamed louder than anyone when they called my name. In September, she came out to Sarah over breakfast. I held her hand under the table while Sarah cried, not from disappointment, but from guilt that Lila had ever felt she needed to hide. "You're my daughter," Sarah said fiercely. "Exactly as you are. Always." I came out to her the next week. She hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe and whispered, "I have 2 perfect children. How did I get so lucky?" Some nights, Lila and I still end up on the back deck with cheap wine, talking about everything and nothing. About the futures we're building, piece by careful piece. Some nights, Lila and I still end up on the back deck with cheap wine, talking about everything and nothing. About the futures we're building, piece by careful piece. About how family isn't just blood, it's the people who see all your sharp edges and choose to stay anyway. One night in October, with frost starting to glitter on the grass, she raises her glass. "To found family," she says. 2 secret siblings, I add. We drink. The stars above us feel closer than they ever have before, and for the first time in my life, I know exactly where I belong. Once upon a time in the bustling city of Chicago, where the wind whipped off Lake Michigan and the skyline pierced the clouds like jagged dreams, lived a young woman named Sophia. At 25, she was a graphic designer working from her cozy apartment in Wicker Park, surrounded by vintage posters and half-finished sketches. Sophia had always been the quiet type, introspective, with a laugh that could light up a room but eyes that held secrets she wasn't ready to share. Her mother, Alina, was a fierce advocate for social justice, running a nonprofit that supported marginalized communities. Alina's home was adorned with rainbow flags, and she volunteered at local pride events. But Sophia had never mustered the courage to tell her the truth about herself. It all started with a phone call. One humid afternoon in July, Elena's voice was bubbling with excitement. "Sophia, honey, I have some news. Remember how I told you about your father? The one who left when you were little? Well, he passed away last year, and it turns out you have a half-sister." Sophia froze, her pencil hovering over a digital tablet. "A what?" "Her name is Mia. She's 28, lives in San Francisco, and she's an environmental scientist. She's been wanting to connect with family. I invited her to visit for a few weeks. She arrives tomorrow." The revelation hit Sophia like a cold wave. She barely remembered her father, a distant figure who had abandoned them for a new life on the West Coast. Now this stranger, Mia, was coming into her world. Sophia spent the night tossing and turning, her mind racing with questions. What if Mia was judgmental? What if she disrupted the fragile peace Sophia had built around her hidden identity? The next day, Mia arrived at O'Hare Airport, her suitcase in tow and a warm smile on her face. She was striking tall with sun-kissed skin, wavy auburn hair cascading down her back, and eyes the color of stormy seas. Dressed in eco-friendly linen pants and a simple tank top, she exuded an effortless confidence that made Sophia's stomach twist in knots. Alina picked her up and brought her straight to the family brownstone in Lincoln Park, where Sophia waited nervously on the porch as Mia stepped out of the car. Their eyes met, and Sophia felt an inexplicable spark. "You must be Sophia," Mia said, extending her hand. Her voice was smooth, like velvet over gravel. "It's so good to finally meet you." Sophia shook her hand, noting the firmness of her grip and the way Mia's fingers lingered just a second too long. "Yeah, you too. This is ... surreal." Over dinner that night, Telona's famous homemade lasagna, the conversation flowed awkwardly at first. Mia shared stories of her life in San Francisco, hiking in the redwoods, protesting climate change, and her passion for marine biology. Sophia listened, mesmerized, sharing bits about her design work and her love for urban street art. Alina beamed, thrilled to see her daughters connecting. But as the days passed, Sophia found herself drawn to Mia in ways she couldn't explain. They'd go for walks along the lakefront trail, the summer sun glinting off the water, and Mia would talk about her own journey. One evening, as they sat on a bench watching joggers pass by, Mia opened up. "Sophia, can I tell you something personal? I'm gay. I've been out since college, but it wasn't easy. I lost some friends, and my mom or dad's second wife wasn't thrilled at first." Sophia's heart pounded. She had known about her own feelings since high school, the crushes on girls in her art class, the way she'd force herself to date boys to fit in. But saying it aloud, that was terrifying. "How did you do it?" "Come out, I mean." Mia smiled sadly, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "It took years. I knew when I was 16, but I hid it until I was 21. I was scared I'd lose everything's family, friends, my sense of normalcy. And the funny thing, when I finally told my mom, she hugged me and said she'd suspected for ages. All that fear, ... wasted." "But not everyone reacts that way," Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible over the lapping waves. Mia agreed. "Some face rejection, violence even. The fear is real. But Sophia, your mom Elena, she's amazing. She's got those pride stickers on her car, donates to GLAAD. If anyone's going to understand, it's her." Sophia nodded, but the words stuck in her throat. Intellectually, she knew Mia was right. Alina had always been progressive, marching in rallies and educating others about equality. But emotions were messier. "I'm scared," she admitted finally. "I know. That's okay. Being scared means you're on the brink of bravery." "That doesn't make sense." "Sure it does. Courage isn't fearlessness. It's acting despite the fear." They sat in silence as the sky turned hues of lavender and gold, the city lights flickering on like distant stars. "Mia," Sophia said after a while, "can I ask you something? How did you know for sure? Like the moment it clicked?" Mia gazed out at the horizon, lost in memory. "I was 20, in my oceanography class. There was this woman, Lena, with hair like midnight and a laugh that echoed like waves crashing. We partnered on a project studying coral reefs, and one day in the lab, her hand brushed mine while reaching for a sample. It was like lightning. I couldn't stop thinking about her, the way she bit her lip when concentrating, her passion for saving the oceans. I realized that's what I'd been missing in every relationship with guys. It wasn't about the right man. It was about admitting I was drawn to women." "Did you tell her?" "Yeah, we dated for a year. She was my first real love, intense and eye-opening. It ended when she moved abroad for research, but it showed me what was possible." Sophia swallowed hard. "I've never felt that. Not really. I'm Archer Wu. And nothing's clicked like that." Mia turned to her, the dimming light casting shadows on her face. "You will, Sophia. Now that you're starting to face it, it'll come. And it'll be incredible." There was something in Mia's tone of depth, an intensity that made Sophia's pulse quicken. It went beyond sisterly advice, hinting at something unspoken. "Mia, why did you really come here? You could have stayed away." Mia was quiet, the wind tousling her hair. "When Alina sent me your photo, I saw it in your eyes, this guardedness, like you were hiding from the world. It reminded me of myself before I came out. I thought maybe I could help, be a guide, a friend. Someone who sees the real you." The words wrapped around Sophia like a warm blanket. "Thank you," she murmured, "for showing me it's possible to be brave." Mia's smile was soft, but her eyes held a spark that made Sophia's breath hitch something electric. Something more. As they walked home through the twilight streets, the air thick with the scent of blooming flowers from nearby gardens, Sophia felt a shift. The space between them buzzed with potential, its unspoken desires lingering like fireflies. The following days were a whirlwind. Sophia felt liberated in small ways, allowing herself to notice beautiful women on the L train, no longer shaming her thoughts. But a new complication arose. Her growing attraction to Mia. It wasn't abstract. It was raw, ignited by Mia's laugh echoing through the apartment. The brush of her arm during movie nights. The way she'd catch Mia watching her with an unreadable expression. It was wrong, Sophia told herself. Mia was her half-sister, family by blood, even if they'd only met weeks ago. The heart, though, defied rules. Desire simmered, growing stronger the more she tried to ignore it. She began avoiding Mia working late in coffee shops, excusing herself from family dinners, retreating to her room with headphones on. Alina noticed, of course. One morning over coffee, she cornered Sophia in the kitchen. "What's going on with you and Mia? She thinks she upset you somehow." Guilt flooded Sophia. "No, it's not her. I've just been overwhelmed with projects." Elena's gaze was piercing. "Honey, I know this is a big change, but Mia's only here another week. Don't waste it hiding." She was right. The thought of Mia leaving twisted Sophia's insides. That evening, she found Mia on the rooftop deck of their building, sketching the city skyline in a notebook. The sun dipped low, painting everything in amber. "Hey," Sophia said, hesitant. "Can I join?" Mia's face lit up with relief. "Absolutely. I've missed our talks. Sorry. I've been ... scared." "Of what?" Mia set her pencil down. Sophia sat beside her. The city hummed below. "Running from feelings that are too intense." Mia nodded knowingly. "I've done that plenty. When things get real, it's easier to hide." "Mia, Sophia trailed off, words failing her. How could she confess the turmoil, the desire, the shame? "Whatever it is, it's okay," Mia said gently. "You don't have to face it alone. What if it's wrong?" Sophia blurted, "Wrong how?" The truth hovered, but Sophia couldn't voice it. Mia leaned in. "Sophia, there's something I need to tell you. I should have said it sooner, but I was afraid." Sophia's heart raced. "What?" "The reason I came wasn't just family curiosity. When Alina described you, sent your picture, I felt drawn in a way that wasn't sibling-like. I told myself it was the shared blood, but meeting you. It's more." The world tilted. "What do you mean?" "We're half-sisters biologically, but we didn't grow up together. No shared history, no sibling bond. We're strangers who connected deeply. What I feel for you, ... It's not familial. It's attraction, real and undeniable."
Oh.
Sophia gasped. "You feel it too? That pull?" "Yes," Mia whispered. "Tell me I'm not alone." "You're not. I've been fighting it, thinking it's messed up." "It's not about labels," Mia said, her voice trembling. "Society's rules don't apply here. We're two women who met and sparked something rare. The genetic thing. Irrelevant for us. No risk of kids." Mia's hand found Sophia's, the touch sending sparks. "I'm scared too, but I've wasted years fearing love. I want to try this if you do." Sophia didn't speak. She leaned in, their lips meeting softly at first, then with growing certainty. The kiss was electric, erasing doubts, leaving only warmth. When they parted, breathless, Mia smiled. "Wow, yeah," Sophia echoed. "We need to talk about this boundaries, what it means." "I know. It's complicated, but I don't want to ignore it." They agreed to take it slow, to figure out telling Alina later. The next week was magical. Stolen kisses in art galleries. Whispered confessions on midnight walks along Michigan Avenue. Deep talks about futures Mia, considering a job transfer to Chicago. Finally, Sophia knew they couldn't hide. "We need to tell Mom. Are you ready?" Mia asked yes. Together. They found Alina and her partner Carlos in the living room, Alina knitting, Carlos reading the news. "We need to talk," Sophia said, her hand in Mia's. Alina looked up, concerned. What's wrong? I'm gay, Sophia said, the words freeing. And Mia and I are together, romantically. Silence fell. Then Elena's eyes softened. Oh, girls. I've suspected about you, Sophia. And this. It's unexpected, but I see how you look at each other. As long as you're happy and safe, that's what matters. Relief washed over them. Carlos nodded supportively. Family is what we make it. Mia extended her stay, and as summer faded into fall, their bond deepened. They navigated judgments from outsiders, but in each other. They found home a love born from shared secrets, bravery, and the courage to rewrite their story. A Long Way Home by Liam Caldwell. I never meant to fall in love with my stepsister. Her name is Rowan. She's 24 now, 2 years younger than me. And the first time I saw her, she was 17 and furious, slouched in the doorway of my dad's new house in Asheville, with earbuds in. Black eyeliner sharp enough to cut glass, giving me the kind of glare that said, "You are the reason my mom married your dad, and I hate you for it." That was 7 years ago. My dad married her mom, Claire, when I was 19 and home from college for the summer. The wedding was small, outdoors, mountain air thick with pine. Rowan didn't speak to me once. She wore a charcoal dress and boots and spent the reception sitting on the hood of her mom's old Subaru, smoking a cigarette she definitely wasn't old enough to have. I remember thinking she looked like a storm cloud someone had dressed up for a photograph. We didn't become family. Not really. We became satellites orbiting the same uneasy planet. Holidays were tense. Dad and Claire tried too hard. Rowan and I barely spoke. She went to art school in Savannah. I stayed in North Carolina, got a job in outdoor education, led rich teenagers on wilderness trips, so could avoid thinking about the fact that I hadn't had a real relationship in 4 years and still flinched when anyone used the word gay around me like it might burn. I knew I was queer by the time I was 15. I knew it the way you know a bruise is coming before anyone touches you. But I grew up in a small mountain town where church was Sunday and Wednesday and sometimes Friday, where my dad still said that's gay like it was a punchline, where being different meant being gone. So I left the parts of me that didn't fit in a box and buried it deep. Rowan came out first. It was Christmas, 3 years ago. She was 21, home from SCAD, with a shaved head and a girlfriend named Mara, who had a nose ring and laughed like a firecracker. Claire cried, not sad tears, proud tears. My dad looked like someone had punched him in the soul, but he hugged Rowan anyway and muttered something about love being love. I sat on the couch with a beer I wasn't drinking, watching my stepsister be braver than I'd ever been, and felt something crack inside my chest. I came out 6 months later, quietly to my best friend, Jonah, on a backpacking trip in the Smokies, then to my mom over the phone. Then, eventually, to Dad and Claire at the kitchen table one Sunday morning when Rowan was home for the weekend. Rowan didn't say much, just reached across the table and squeezed my hand once, hard, like she was saying, "I see you." That was the first time we ever really touched. After that, something shifted, not all at once, slowly, like ice breaking on a river in spring. Rowan started coming home more often. We'd sit on the back porch after everyone else went to bed, sharing a joint or a bottle of wine, talking about everything we hadn't said for years. She told me about growing up feeling wrong in her skin, about the first girl she kissed behind the auditorium in 10th grade, about how art saved her life. I told her about the boy I loved in high school who moved away sophomore year and never spoke to me again, about how I used to pray to not be this way, about how I stopped believing in a God who made mistakes. One night in late May, 2 years ago now, she asked if I wanted to see her senior thesis show. It was in Savannah. I said yes before I thought about it. I drove down alone. Stayed in a cheap Airbnb near Forsyth Park. The gallery was small. White walls, string lights, too many people drinking cheap wine. Rowan's work was everywhere. Huge charcoal drawings, oil paintings, thick with texture, photographs layered with text. All of it raw. All of it about bodies and want and shame and defiance. There was one piece that stopped me cold. It was a self-portrait. Rowan, naked from the waist up, arms raised, ribs visible, eyes closed. Across her chest, written in red paint that dripped like blood, "I am not your tragedy." I stood in front of it for a long time. Later, outside on the sidewalk, she found me smoking a cigarette I didn't want. "You okay?" she asked. I couldn't speak. Just nodded. Then stupidly, "That one. The red one. That S. Brave?" She laughed. "Soft. Terrifying, you mean?" "Oh," I said. "Free." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said very quietly, "You could be free too, Liam." I didn't sleep that night. She came home for the summer after graduation. No job lined up yet. Needed to save money? Dad and Claire turned the basement into a studio for her big windows, north light. I was between guiding seasons, taking a few months off to help my mom after her knee surgery. So suddenly, after years of distance, we were in the same house again. It started small, a brush of hands reaching for the same coffee mug, sitting closer on the porch swing. Then we needed to, her catching me staring when she came up from the studio in paint-splattered overalls and nothing underneath, me catching her, watching me when I came back from a run, shirtless and sweaty. We didn't talk about it. We both knew. One night in July, there was a storm. Power went out. Dad and Claire were asleep upstairs. Rowan and I were on the couch watching the lightning over the mountains, candles flickering. She was curled against my side, head on my shoulder. My heart was beating so hard, I was sure she could hear it. She said, "This is fucked up, isn't it?" I laughed, shaky. "Yeah, we're not actually related," she said, like she'd been rehearsing it. "I know. People will think I know." She turned to look at me. Her eyes were huge in the candlelight. "I don't care what people think. I care what you think." I kissed her then. It wasn't soft or sweet. It was 7 years of distance and want and fear and recognition all at once. It was her hands in my hair and my name in her mouth like a prayer. It was wrong and right and inevitable. We didn't sleep together that night. We just kissed until our lips were swollen and held each other, until the power came back on and the world felt too bright. The next morning, we sat at the kitchen table before anyone else was up and made rules. No lying, no hiding. We tell Claire and Dad together. When we're sure, we go slow. We protect each other. It was the hardest thing I've ever done telling them. It was August, hot. Crickets loud enough to drown out a heartbeat. We sat them down in the living room. Rowan held my hand so tight I lost feeling in my fingers. Claire cried. Not angry, just overwhelmed. Dad didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, "You're adults. I can't stop you. But Jesus Christ, kids, this is..." A lot we expected: disgust, rejection, being asked to leave. We didn't expect Claire to say, "I just want you both to be happy." Truly, but you have to know this will be hard. People will be cruel, Dad added, voice rough. You're not blood. That's something. But you grew up together. Your family. This isn't simple, Rowan said. Love isn't simple. I said, we're not asking for permission. We're asking for time. They gave us time. Rowan moved out, first got a tiny apartment above a bookstore downtown. I stayed in the house a little longer, saving money, guiding trips in the fall. We dated like normal people. Coffee shops. Late movies. Hikes where we held hands when no one was around. We fought about jealousy, about fear, about how to tell people. We made up in her bed with the windows open and the mountains watching. I came out to the rest of the world, slowly friends, co-workers, my mom, who surprised me by saying, "Honey, I knew the first time you brought that boy Chris home in 10th grade and looked at him like he hung the moon." Rowan's art changed, became softer, brighter. She started painting us not obviously, but in fragments. A hand on a shoulder, 2 silhouettes against a sunset. The curve of a back that could have been mine. Last year, she got a residency in Santa Fe, asked me to come with her. I said yes. We've been here 8 months now. We have a little adobe house with a courtyard and too many succulents. I teach wilderness skills to at-risk youth. Rowan's showing at galleries. We're happy. Really happy Claire and Dad came to visit in October. It was strange at first. Awkward hugs. Careful conversations. But then Claire helped Rowan hang a show, and Dad and I went fishing, and something settled. Not fixed. Not perfect. But real. People judge. Of course they do. Some of Rowan's old friends stopped speaking to her. My aunt sent a Facebook message about sin and boundaries. We don't talk to her anymore, but we have others. Friends who get it. Queer chosen family who understand that love doesn't follow rules. That sometimes the person who sees you clearest is the one you were never supposed to want. Rowan's latest series is called Homecoming. It's us, not hidden, not ashamed. Just two people who found each other in the wreckage of expectation and built something. True. There's a photograph in the show taken by a friend of me and Rowan on the couch in our Santa Fe house. I'm asleep, head in her lap. She's looking down at me like I'm the answer to a question she's been asking her whole life. The caption reads, "He was never my brother. He was always my future." I used to think love had to look a certain way. Safe, neat, approved. But love isn't a house with a white picket fence. Sometimes love is a fire you walk into knowing you might get burned. Sometimes love is the person who hands you water and says, "Stay anyway." Rowan taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's fear walking forward anyway. If you're reading this and you're scared of who you are, of who you love, of what it might cost, know this. You are not broken. You are not alone. Your heart knows the way home. Even when the path is dark. For me, home has dark hair and paint under her. Nails and a laugh like a storm finally breaking. Her name is Rowan. She's my stepsister. She's my partner. She's my home. And I have never been more myself than I am with her. This isn't the end of our story. It's just the part where we stopped hiding. Liam Caldwell, Santa Fe, December 2025.